I'm going to call us to order at 7:01. And additions or corrections to agenda. So I'm going to make the first addition, and that would be, as I just stated, that being the chair of the Western Board, I'd like to hand that over to somebody else for the budget. So I'll entertain a motion for a budget committee chair.
I'll do it for you if you want.
I'll nominate Joe Winrick for budget committee chair.
All right. Don't need a second for a nomination, but do I have anybody else? No? All right. Hearing none. Sorry, I'm trying to expand my screen and admit people at the same time. Let me take a roll call. Yay, nay, or abstain, starting with you, Ken.
Yay.
Leanne.
Yay.
Mike.
Yay.
Joe.
Yay.
Dana.
Yay.
Oh my gosh, you guys keep on flipping around here. Let's see.
I think you got it.
And that, okay, yes, we got everybody. Yeah. All right, the motion carries. Joe is now the chair of the budget committee. Now I know you have to run off and do something, Joe. Would you like me to run through the next few items while you're away?
That would be great. I have just enabled that all participants can share the screen, and I will give you back host. I apologize, but I have this conflict and it's only 15 minutes and I'm like, I just got to go lock up the food shelf. I need to learn the word no. I'll be back in 15 minutes, everybody.
All right, sounds good.
Go.
Sorry, I'm a little distracted. I'm admitting people left and right. All right, so let me apologize. Need to pull up the board norms. My heart. Here. Apologize. One. Well, as I am struggling to find the norms, I think we all know them, to respect each other, respect the agenda, thoughtful and helpful discourse, and I promise I will have them ready and available prior to the next meeting. And all right, moving on to the next. Members of the public, if there is anything you would like to discuss that is not on our agenda, now would be the time. If you want to go ahead and raise your hand or just unmute and let us know. We can discuss now. If not, we can hit that when we get to a particular subject matter. All right, like being none. All right, and then in terms of correspondence, we did get a letter from, so you can say the name, right? No mystery. Johanna Laskowski-Doak sent a letter, very well written letter, thoughtful letter, discussing the long-term planning that we're in the process of doing right now. And speaking to the fact that we certainly need to, as a board, both this board and the main board, give confidence to administrations, to the teachers, to all people that work at Leland and Gray, what the path is going forward. An incredibly stressful situation that a lot of people are in right now, and so much uncertainty, and we really need to give certainty in these uncertain times. That's a fair summary of everything Johanna said in the letter, but it was a very well written letter, and it is part of the our correspondence and our documents. And I do believe Johanna is on with us tonight. If she wanted to speak any further to that and give a more fair summary. Don't mean to put you on the spot. Thought I saw her.
I'm here, Al. Thanks. No, thank you. I appreciate you bringing it up. That is a fair and accurate summary. Yeah, I encourage folks to take a look at it. It's not super duper long, but it's part of the documents that I believe Bill just reshared with everybody. So if you want to take a look at some of the other comments, that would be great. I guess part of it is, I see things from a few different lenses as a parent, as a teacher, as an administrator, and as a taxpayer. And I just felt like I, wanted to let everybody know what I see through all those different lenses, because obviously it's very important. So thank you, and I appreciate your time on it.
Thank you. I appreciate you sending the letter. Very important. Totally agree. All right. So moving on to approving the minutes of May 26th Budget Committee meeting. Entertain a motion.
Ken will motion.
I'll second it.
I'm sorry, who was the first?
Ken.
Dana's the second.
And Dana. All right. Okay. All those in favor say either aye, nay, or abstain. Ken.
Aye.
Leanne.
Aye.
Dana.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
All right. And I don't believe Joe is back. Joe? No. Okay. Motion carries. All right. So moving on to the purpose of Budget Committee meetings. This is our chance, our opportunity to really dive in, dig deep on matters of the budget. The original board, I'm sorry, we tasked the administration to look at long-term planning, and this is a part of getting into that very deep dive and understanding what our path is going to be going forward. We have a long schedule over the next 4 months where we will continue to look at all aspects of planning, narrowing of the options that we have on the table to allow the administration to really, again, dive in and for the Budget Committee to solidify on some decisions and then move that to the main board for final completion and adoption. So that's where we're at with old business. And then on new business, administration work after May 26th meeting, discussion and possible action. So Leland and Gray, future planning. Let's see, where would you like to go with that one, Bill?
Let me introduce the principal of Leland and Gray, Mr. Robert Tebow.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Bob.
So, Al, I have a presentation which I won't go through super slow. I'll try to give you guys a break on some of the details, but the end of it is really the important stuff, and that's what I want to get to. So I think I am allowed to share here, right? All right, are you seeing it?
Yep.
Okay. So just a quick outline. I'm just going to talk a little about the mission of Leland and Gray, the current experiences of the Leland and Gray student, academic, social, emotional, co-curricular, and some stuff about what makes us unique. And then looking ahead, which is the part I think you guys are really more interested at this point. Leland and Gray mission is based on 3 tenets: promoting excellence, and, honoring community, and honoring individuality. And so I tried to address each of these about how we currently operate. We have a wide variety of courses, plenty of rigorous offerings, reasonable class sizes, lots of good relationships. The students give themselves to the community, and the community supports us. And I just want to do a quick shout out to Larry Gould, who came and volunteered his time prior to graduation to help do some much needed repair to the trail the students were coming down, including a load of gravel, totally free of his own time and his crew. And of course, he's an LNG alum, so still shout out to Larry. Or as Terry calls him, Uncle Larry. And then, of course, the individuality, respecting individuality. And this is really where I'm going to go a lot with this presentation, is about the personalization piece, which I'll come to at the end. It occurred to me that as you guys had been starting to have some of these conversations about Leland and Gray, there's probably some folks on the board, and I know I don't have a full board here, just the committee, that may not know a lot about what Leland and Gray does have to offer. And the view of us being the small school, it doesn't offer very many things. Just want to try to dispel that myth a little bit. And again, I'm not going to go through every single point. I'm going to try to go pretty quickly through this. But as folks can see, typically, and this is in the middle school, the 4 primary offerings. Middle school kids can access high school level math as part of their day, so we're not limiting them on what they can offer in math. Physical education every other day all year, health education every other day all year, except in the 6th grade, it's half the year. Band and chorus, art, Chinese, Spanish, library study skills, technology, personal development in 6th grade, career exploration in the 8th grade, and all students access all of these things, as well as a remediation block and enrichment. So these are things that all of our middle school students get to access 6 through 8 with different amounts of time based on what is happening and so on and so forth. But I want folks to at least get a quick sense of that. And obviously, if you have questions, probably the easiest way to do them is to write them down, because I don't know that I'm going to be able to see if hands are raised, right? So unless you want to interrupt me if you see a hand raised, I don't even know if you can see hands raised at this point, but certainly.
Yeah, I mean, short of that, somebody could just unmute but yeah, I don't see any raised hands.
Okay.
I'll look.
All right. At the high school level, we have the usual requirements that the 4 core subjects that everyone kind of knows about. What people may not notice is that we regularly offer 3 AP courses. We have others that can run when the demand requires them, or as independent studies with students. We have lots of dual enrollment offerings, and if you don't know what dual enrollment is, in short, it's a way to get college credit while taking a high school class in the high school with the high school teacher. We have a variety of staff that have to go through some hoops with the colleges that we work with to make sure that kids can get those credits. But we have students who are pretty able to get, sometimes as much as a year of college out of the way while in high school. And this is a pretty cool program. So there's a few of the ones that we've offered in-house. Our staff also, even though it's above and beyond the contract, are willing to do independent studies with students as they have interests. And there's just a couple of lists of some of the independent studies I've done the last couple of years. And I mean, if you went back even longer, you'd have a much longer list. That's just very recently. We have a pretty robust work-based learning program. And you can see some of the placements that are, again, pretty recent, where students go out in the workforce and get training with Terry on how to be a good employee, how to build a resume, interview skills, all that kind of fun stuff as well. And they get to go to work. We've had students with our own Lori Garland, as a matter of fact. So that's a little bit of a look at that. And then, of course, one of the things that we do that most people don't do, our high school health curriculum has a CPR certification requirement, which most curricula in Vermont do not have. So I just want to point that out as well. And of course, because we have a membership with VTVLC, the Vermont Virtual Learning Collaborative, we have access to over 80 courses taught by other teachers in Vermont. And our own Tong Chen offers up a Chinese class to them to get us our slots with the kids. So you support that through a very small membership fee, although that's been waived for this coming year by the AOE because they're paying it, and the percentage of tuition, the percentage of salary benefits that we pay Tong to do one of those classes. So lots of access there. In addition, we have a technology department, art department, PE, world languages, and just a quick comment about these things. I wrote down they have great variety and flexibility. So one of the things that these teachers have been doing is teaching multiple classes simultaneously. So it's happened the longest in the world languages. You know, you don't have enough kids to run a separate Chinese 4 and Chinese 5, so you put them together in one room at one time, or sometimes even 3, 4, and 5. I know General's done up to 3 levels with Spanish over the years, and the teachers take that on so that we can maintain our staffing levels, but we have the ability for kids to get that differentiated learning all at one time in one classroom. So, but it gives us the ability to offer more things. Same thing goes on in phys ed with weightlifting and other cardio kickboxing, classes like that. And it happens pretty extensively in art and technology as well. Kids could be taking ceramics and painting happening at the same time in the art room with one teacher. So that helps us schedule them and helps kids get what they want for electives. And it makes it a lot harder on the teachers. But they're troopers and they've been awesome at it. So we have a wide variety of electives as well within the 4 main content areas. I've just listed a few that we've run in the last year or two. That's the English department, obviously the social studies department, science department, and some other ones that I just thrown in. These are classes that are above and beyond some of the ones I've listed earlier under the dual enrollment options as well. And there's some of the variations within the art, and of course music. Senior survival, as you guys know, is coming back this coming fall. This year's senior class 2021 is going to be the first group to have that in, well, I don't know, many, many years as a requirement. I see Dana nodding. You probably had that when you were a student. So it's not going to be exactly the same as the Charlie Marchant version. We're not going to just abandon you on a hilltop somewhere with a compass and wish you luck. But we are going to do a lot of the similar kinds of skill building for folks to get some of those transferable skills for the workplace. And of course, we have a project-based learning class, which is kids can get credits in both English and social studies while doing projects. And of course, our special ed programming and the home program, which is our adventure-based programming, and the ELC, which is our intensive needs programming. And those students obviously flow in and out with our mainstream students. And a lot of our students go into do co-ops with the ELC as well and work with some of those kids. So it's a really good give and take with those programs. All right, well, it's not all about academics, as I'm sure you've been told. So what do we do on the social emotional side for kids? So we have middle school houses, which are like advisories modeled after the Harry Potter themes. We have a low student counselor ratio. We have middle school and high school resource rooms for kids to get support. We're revamping our high school advisory program, which Johanna is working on. We have a middle school personal development and career courses. We do a lot of spirit activities and Spirit Week. We have our community service requirement. Lots of travel opportunities has been historically one of the big things at Leland and Gray. We bring in outside clinicians to do therapy with students in our space. We do not pay them. They are paid by the families, but we provide the space and the kids have the opportunity to see those either in individual or group sessions. We have the food shelf access that we run internally. Plus, we do a great partnership, and Gerald is big in that with Joe across the street with that. Our kids help out with that as well. We have a thrifty Rebel clothing store of free stuff for kids and families who need clothes that have been donated and cleaned. We do our own counselors do individual and group counseling, a social worker as well. We have a little programming in our assemblies around different kinds of awareness around different issues, and some clubs for the kids as well, QSA, Dungeons and Dragons, et cetera. So lots of different opportunities for kids to kind of find their way and get connected in the community, in our Leland and Gray community. All right. I know I'm zooming through this stuff because I want to get to the important stuff at the end, guys. So bear with me. On the co-curricular side, we have a variety of sports. As you can see, our most recent couple were the track and field, ultimate disc, and unified basketball. In the last 5 years, we have 97 of our kids have made first or second team all MVL. 18 All-State, we had Player of the Year, some North-South basketball players, some softball players, Coach of the Year awards, Best School Sports Coach 3 times. Semifinal, this is in the last few years, 8 semifinal trips, 3 state runner-ups, a state champion, 6 individual state champions, the track and field and snowboarding. Like I mentioned, the 3 varsity programs. And of course, as Marty will tell you, it's the memories, the friendships, and the life lessons that are really more important than all of that. The reason I mention this when I talk about the uniqueness is I want to really point out that our kids access these programs in a way that is really unlike a larger school. We do not, by and large, have any sort of cuts. Playing time at the high school level may not be equal, but all kids have access to all these activities. And that's something that we know would not exist if our students went to bigger schools. Many of our athletes would not even make the teams at some of the bigger schools that are neighboring to us. Same goes for our drama program. 25 years of 3 shows annually, lots of kids per year involved, depending on the show, 6 through 12. Last 2 years, they've won 2 awards at the state festival, including 4 individual acting awards as well for our players. And again, these are kids that have access to leading roles and other main roles that they wouldn't have in a much bigger school. And of course, we had the Moss Hart Award years ago when Ann was still here running the program. Junior Iron Chef also competes at statewide level, and again gets a group of kids that wouldn't normally, that don't normally participate in other ways. In our winter activities program, one of the few, middle and high schools in Vermont who still run one of these. And of course, skiing and boarding at Stratton is the big one. But as you can see, we have a variety of other activity programs that run each year. Sometimes 1 or 2 will go away and new ones will replace them. But these are the ones that have run the last couple of years. Usually have 10 or 11 that run simultaneously that our kids can do. All right. So that was sort of the first, that was the who we are, the experience for our kids, and our guiding principles. Now we're going to jump into a little bit about the future. Are we ready? All right, here we go. All right, so first I wanted to start off by talking about what we've learned from our experience this spring that can help us be better moving forward. So we'll talk a little about that. So 3 things really. 1, around instruction. We've discovered that through the work the teachers have done that we're really better equipped, probably than we realized, but definitely better now to leverage technology for better instruction and ways to integrate technology into what we do. And even teachers who had been maybe resistant to technology or had needed a little more support than others, obviously everybody had to be up and running with this spring. So a lot of skill growth in our staff, and we came quite a ways, I can tell you that. One of the things we discovered was that the kids that didn't do so well in the COVID era here had to do really with lots of things. I mean, lack of family support, obviously poverty, and all the things that put kids in vulnerable populations. But one of the things that even some of our kids who have those things, who struggle because of their lack of executive functions skills, they didn't have the organizational ability to manage the workload coming in the way that it came in. They weren't used to it. And we hadn't really trained them that well on how to do that. And so that's one of the things that we're really looking at very carefully for the fall. And as I mentioned earlier, our advisory system is getting a little bit of an overhaul to try to address that need so that we know that our kids will be better equipped if there is another wave and we have to go to a hybrid or remote learning, or even just better for regular day-to-day operation. to have better skills in study skills and organizational strategy. So we learned that as well. We also learned that this gave us a lot of opportunities. And as teachers kind of played around with the idea of being able to use technology, what we discovered was, we can really utilize this to leverage the technology to get more variability within our courses. And I mentioned some of the courses, having multiple great courses happening in one room at one time. We now have the ability, as we think through this, and this is really generated from the teachers, to offer different approaches. You could have honors tracks of programming. All of our courses could have an adjacent honors track that kids could get on their transcript, but not create a separate section, not have additional staffing. Teachers can operate that additional work or more rigorous assignments in a Google Classroom setting for those kids that select that. And then we transcript them differently as they do that. So you don't have a traditional tracking because the kids are still in the same room working together, but you have increased opportunities for kids, particularly kids who want to be pushed. So that differentiation gives us the ability for sort of the upper learners and for the struggling learners as well. There were challenges. What we have discovered is that our vulnerable populations, there are gaps that they already existed. Those gaps have grown bigger during this time. And we do need to address how that's going to happen. And you can see the question mark there because we have to wait till we have those kids back in our ability to figure out how to go about that. But we definitely have some broadening gaps. So that's one thing I did want to mention. All right, so what is next for us? Well, here's the vision, all right? We want to be the best small school in Vermont, all right? And I think that's entirely possible. A lot of small schools struggle and, either with lack of community support or lack of resources, or even just the ingenuity of the staff. And I think that we do not struggle with that. Small makes us more personal. It gives us a better experience for our kids. They know our staff knows them. You don't slip through the cracks when you go to a small school because we know who you are. We're also easily able to change and adapt when you're a small school. A lot of the bigger schools, as I heard principals across the state go to this COVID stuff in March, they were taking a week and a half, sometimes 2 weeks to get up and running and functional in this new teaching method. Our teachers, and they're amazing. They did it in 2 days. I'm not saying that it was super smooth. I'm not saying they were all 100% proficient when we started, but in 2 days we had instruction up there for kids. And I think it's in part because we're small and we're able to do that. And then the third thing, which is the one I want to emphasize for the remainder of this presentation, is the ability to offer a personalized education for our kids. And if you either watched the graduation this year or you heard about it, I think one of the things that people really liked is that we were able to, for every single student, go through the list of accolades that they had as their name was called, all the awards and scholarships that they won, and we were able to talk about what they were going to be doing after graduation, whether it was college, career, military, whatever. We had those things read out loud because we don't have 200 kids. We can do that, and it doesn't make the ceremony last 9 hours. In fact, just the fact that we could have a ceremony, I think, is attributed to the fact that we're a small school. We could fit 32 boxes of 6 people in each box in our soccer field pretty easily and still have people be able to see their kids and see the stage. And that's a tribute to a small school. And I think that's really important to be able to identify. Small should be viewed as a blessing, not a curse. We have to embrace that about Leland and Gray. And I'll say this, Leland and Gray, when I taught here in the mid to late 90s, we had a school size that was over 400, 450 even, I think, at one point. And everyone talks about how, well, we've had declining enrollment. But if you ask some of these folks that have been around how big their graduating class was, I bet that those classes are similar to the classes right now. And I don't know, Dana, do you know off the top of your head how big your graduating class was?
1986, it was 50. 3 people didn't graduate.
So this class this year was a small one, but next year's class is in the low to mid 40s. So it's not really significantly different. And I don't know if that 50 was a big group comparatively at the time or not, but I know that in the 70s, I know that those numbers are more in the 40s. So anyway, so we need to just rethink how we view small. All right, now you guys have heard me talk about personalization. You've maybe read Act 77 and you wonder like, well, what does that really look like? What I want to do is just give you five quick synopsis of 5 different kids, not real kids, these are fictional kids, and how they can personalize their experience at Leland and Gray with 5 different interests, using our coursework, using the online through VTVLC, using dual enrollment through CCV and online courses there, using a work-based learning program, using independent studies, community service opportunities, and how you can take a kid who has an interest and turn it into a very personalized experience. And that doesn't even get into the project-based stuff, which I'll get to afterwards. So let's take a quick look at student number 1. Student number 1 likes animals. All right, we all probably know a kid like this coming into 6th grade. Well, this student is thinking maybe a vet tech, maybe a veterinarian, we don't know. But when they're younger, they're thinking about tech. As they enter high school, you can see the column on the left are the courses we offer. So nothing is needed. Kid can take A&P, they can take wildlife ecology, and they can get a start on some animal science and some anatomy and physiology, which would be important to them in the study of animals. They can go to the local vet clinic. They can do internships at Grace Cottage as part of their work-based learning opportunities. They can do an independent study. In fact, one of them had done one recently on animal A&P with one of our teachers. They could take an animal behavior course through CCV using one of the vouchers and do that for free. In the other category, they could do a winter activity at Gerda's Animal Rescue and work with animals there. They could do their community service hours through the Humane Society. All right. So this is just one way that a student can take the existing opportunities and really hone in on one area of study that they want to do. Now, of course, they're going to take a bunch of other stuff too. All right, they're going to still take English, they're still going to take math, and so on and so forth. But this allows them to really have a focus so that when they get out, they know what they want to do. Or as they get deeper, they realize they don't want to do that. They can turn and go in a different direction. But that's one example. Student number 2, interested in computers, just thinking about maybe a computer science degree. The student is maybe headed to college. We have some in-house courses, applied technology and programming. They could do some work-based learning through local IT departments, ours or at Grace Cottage. They could take an independent study on networking. They could take a Cisco One course through CCV. We have a broad alumni connections that Terry has been working to build to find alum who are out there in the computer science field to connect our kids with, to talk about the job market, talk about career planning and college choices. And for community service, they could build a teacher's website. So all these are different ways to kind of build their resume as they are in Leland and Gray and in the computer science field. I just lost my mouse. Here we go. Interest. I like money. How about a business or finance career? We have economics. We have AP Calc. We have personal finance. They could do an internship with Lori down at the Wyndham Central office, which, as I mentioned, has been done. Grace Cottage, another opportunity. We have local accountants. Some of whom are alum might take on a student to work with during their busy times to help out. Again, VTVLC is another online program that we have access to. There's a business management and admin course. There's an entrepreneurship course. They could jump into a small business management course through CCV. They want to be involved in the yearbook. They can do ad sales. They could do bingo, community service hours, and help with the money management. They could be the treasurer of the student council. Another, again, just ways that you can personalize your educational experience while with us. Another one, law enforcement. You're thinking about a criminal justice degree. We have psych, we have probability and statistics, which would be very important in criminology. And we have a forensics course, which runs every year. Terry has set up ride-alongs with the state police and the Wyndham County Sheriff's Department, and even work with the Vermont Game Wardens. So again, we have local. Independent studies in criminology, CCV courses, VTVLC, be involved with their student representatives and learn about democracy a little bit more. Or take a community and restorative justice course through CCV. So again, lots of different opportunities. Now we have a student who, and we had this at graduation, a student who left with a plan to build his own business. So we have a career track, create a landscape business after graduation. So you might want to learn a little bit about psychology because you're dealing with humans. There's a personal finance course, and you need to know about the weather if you're going to be operating a landscape business. So you need to take atmospheric science, which used to be meteorology. You could do a work-based learning with Chris Medina. You could do it in the Leland and Gray building. You could work with a local landscaper. You could take VTVLC courses, CCV courses. Again, you could do, and Terry has done this with students, develop a business plan, and they work with BDCC, with Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, to have their people come up and do work with our students on developing a business plan. So they could do that. And they want to mow the local church's lawn. They can do that and they build their resume that way as well to help get clients later on as their community service. So lots of different opportunities here for kids to really personalize. Now, what you may have noticed, that there's one giant opportunity that I did not list at all, and that is the Career Center. So what I was trying to do is show all the different opportunities you could take and not ever leave the building, or not ever leave Townsend in that regard. But obviously, there's a slew of opportunities down there at the Career Center as well that kids can access. Which is part of our project-based learning component, is that a student who's interested in
Did we lose Bob?
Oh, Bob's back. And you're muted.
and I'm not sure what you heard. Probably failed.
We missed maybe the last 20 or 30 seconds.
All right, so just talking about a student who might want to learn about multiple subject areas and meet proficiencies in those subject areas, but not do it through the traditional course. So we've had students recently take, instead of taking senior English, instead of taking a social studies class, what they've done is they have studied a particular topic. We had a student study the effects of poverty on children in schools. We've had a student study medieval weaponry, I think a year ago. We've had students study heart disease this year, in a situation that was very near and dear to that student's heart. That was a bad pun, I apologize. And other subjects like that, where they're blending credit areas to develop an interest for them. And so we have the ability to do those kinds of things as well. So yeah, that was really what I wanted folks to know about us and to know about where we're headed and what we're thinking about. And I want to take the opportunity to echo what Johanna was talking about too. And I mentioned in a board meeting earlier that I had a bunch of new staff coming in. I was challenged, I think, by the board, by Bill, to do exit interviews, which I conducted. And there was a variety of reasons for people exiting, and retirement was a big one this year. Family commutes and moves and things like that around their family needs was certainly popular. But a theme that did come up 3 times is the instability that I wanted to mention, that Johanna referenced. Until such time that the board has taken action to take the closing of Leland and Gray off the table, the more instability that the staff experiences, which is stressful for them, but it's also stressful for our kids, because as staff departs, we lose a lot of that institutional knowledge and history and the wisdom that having veteran staff like that can bring us. And we lose young new teachers too, who are worried about their job security. When they find something better, they move on because they don't know how the community feels. They don't know how the board feels about Leland and Gray, and they worry about it. So I want to leave you with that thought, and really, respectfully suggest that that if you feel like what I presented, if you feel that what you've heard from people about Leland and Gray is something that is valued by the community, and I understand that cost is cost, and you have to figure that part out, and that's never easy. But I would urge you guys, just from a leadership perspective, to consider making a decision about that sooner rather than later. And obviously, I think you know how I would vote on that if I could. But I really think it's important for you guys to take a stand on that, to protect the future for the kids of the West River Valley, to be able to access a small school, get the resources that we have access to, and give them the experience that if they had to be put on a bus and sent somewhere else, regardless of where it is, and both of the options nearby are both big schools or both fine schools. It's not about the quality necessarily of the school. It's about the opportunities the kids would miss out on. And a kid from Jamaica who's traveling to Brattleboro and wants to participate on a sports team or be in the drama or be in the band and has a lot of afternoon and evening commitments, you worry about the access for those kids. And that's if they make the team or if they don't, get cut from the play. Or I guess the band is probably a little bit different. But, we want our kids to have those opportunities. The more well-rounded they can be, the better citizens they'll be. And certainly, as you can see when you look at your board, you have a variety of people who have stayed in the community who are students of Leland and Gray. So even though we talk about people leaving Vermont, a lot do stay. And so some of my former students are on this board that have stayed. So I just think it's important to keep that in mind and what the value that we bring to the students and to the families and to the community. So I'll get off my soapbox on that one, but I wanted to leave you with that thought. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Sorry, Bob. I was the one who dropped off in the last 20 seconds. But thank you. Before I handed it back over to the chair of this committee, I just want to say that was an amazing presentation, and small is beautiful. And I think after that, if we don't understand that we have everything that we need right here in the West River Valley, I don't know what else you can say. So I'll pass it out I'll pass it back to Joe and for any other questions. I see Mike has his hand raised.
Yep, I just saw that when I took host back. So Mike, go ahead.
Sure. Bob, that was an excellent presentation. I did read Johan's letter that resonated with me. And as a board, we've talked about the value of LNG in the past. I'm also thinking about, as a budget committee, we really need to start honing options, as in, we've got, 4, 6, 7 options that are currently open. In order to take a deeper dive into any of them and do them any justice, I think we need to, kind of walk away from some options that are unlikely to pass, at the board level or even at the committee level. So with that in mind, I would like to make the following motion. I would like to make a motion that we table anything having to do with closing of LNG. I also want to, in the motion, further tables building a new building. This year, that wouldn't be practical, even if we were all set up and had the finances. It wouldn't be practical in a couple of months to really flush that out. And what we've seen is it added a lot of cost to a district that's already struggling financially. But I definitely do value LNG, so I thought that if we could take the two extreme ends of the spectrum off, this committee and the board's time might be better served looking at the more likely scenarios for the short term and long term.
Okay. Before I ask for a second, I just want to make sure, because table has a very specific meaning under Roberts.
Okay.
And so is your motion actually table, or are you using that in sort of the common vernacular where you just want to stop discussing?
Yeah, I think we should stop discussion. I was using the common vernacular, and you're
okay.
The table leaves it on the table for somebody else to pick it back up, and that was not my intention.
Right. Okay. So the motion is not actually to lay those options or pathways or whatever on the table, but to discontinue putting time and energy into those options. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Al. All right. Discussion. Mike, if you have anything further to add as maker, it's yours.
I think I covered it pretty well, so I'll leave it there.
Okay. Ken? You're muted, Ken. Can Can you unmute yourself?
There we go. All right. So, Bob, I really appreciated your presentation. Joanna, I appreciate your letter. I will say this, though. The worries of the staff up there right now by just saying, okay, we're going to take all this off the table. Now you have your elementary schools that are the other options where their staffs are now going to be even more in a panic because they know that half of the students are going to be, or half the teaching staff is well and good up at Leland and Gray, and now there's going to be cuts at the elementary school level because all the other options are all consolidating the elementary schools in one form or another. Unless everything's left the same, then why have a future planning if everything's going to stay the same? So by this board turning around and saying we're going to eliminate any possibility of that happening in the future, we are turning around and saying we value our high school students more than we do our elementary students, and our elementary students' experience than we do our high school kids' experience. And we value the staff up the high school more than we do the elementary school. And that's how I feel about it. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Al, your hand is up. We also have a chat asking if it's appropriate for committees to make motions. Don't we just make recommendations to the board? And essentially, yes, that is, our motions are non-binding, but it is a committee decision then. And should this motion pass in the committee, it would then be the recommendation of the committee to the board to not pursue those pathways that close Leland and Gray or build a new building. So go ahead, Al. And also, if you can, raise your hand because chat does not get into the meeting easily.
So I would say that this is not a slight to elementary schools. I mean, simply what we're asking for is giving stability, as Bob had mentioned. People are terribly concerned about the instability and uncertainty of Leland and Gray. And what we want to do is we want to stop that. We need to focus on keeping the good young teachers, keeping veterans with all that institutional knowledge, allowing for that personalization that you can only get with a small school. Just all of the benefits that Bob discussed, things that we can do right here in our community by shifting it outside of our community. There's so many variables and negative things that can happen. I could just imagine some shining student at Leland and Gray being shifted down to Brattleboro and their music career being ended or their basketball career being ended because they just get cut from the team. They're disengaged, disenfranchised from that program. Not to say that that would happen with everybody, but I just think that the loss of control by shifting it outside of our walls is immense. And on top of the fact that everything that Joanna laid out, where we need to, as a community, keep Leland and Gray here. And I would disagree, Ken. Not all of the options call for closing elementary schools. Some do, yes, but not all of them. So I'll hand it over.
Dana, your hand was up.
I was just throwing it out there. Did we make any decision on options 5 through 8? Did we take them off the table or did we put them back on the table? I need clarification on that. Because I thought we had taken them off and just added the 11.
That was the recommendation that came out of the last budget committee meeting. But then at the board meeting subsequent to that, the board seemed to put all the options back on the table, and was unwilling to take anything off. And I think this is the budget committee further discussing, again, trying to narrow the pathway. There are a lot of different paths we can take to a future, and our job is to look at these things deeply and then and make recommendations to the full board. We could go back after this, and say that I don't have the options in front of me to give you numbers, but any option that closes Leland and Gray is something that we're recommending that the board no longer pursue for these reasons. The presentation that Bob gave a lot of reasons why it's good for the children and our students, in addition to stability of faculty, which is also good for students. But the board could still decide that it does not want to stop looking at those pathways and continue to, ask questions about and do research on, whatever, until the full board makes a decision. It's just a recommendation from our committee.
I'm just throwing it out there. Come September and October, when we present these to the public will tell us which direction they do want to go. So, I mean, if
come September, October, as the plan stands now, the board would not be presenting 11 different pathways. They would be saying, here's what we think. Ideally it would be one where, this is what we think is the best for the education of our children moving forward sustainably, and here are the reasons why, and this is all the research we've done, and these are all the other options we've looked at, and this is what we as a board now believe we should do together. Whether we actually get to that point in September or not, we'll see. But that was the original goal of this long-term planning session, was that we would come together and have one thing. Okay, I got Patty's hand next. Are you there, Patty?
I am. Am I on? I unmuted myself.
Yeah, you're. We can hear you.
Okay. What I was wondering, it was an amazing presentation, and it's so wonderful to see all the things that Leland and Gray is still doing and doing robustly. I was just wondering, though, about the building. Is there any idea when there'll be a determination of the actual cost for renovations to the building, what's required, and how will you deal with that if it doesn't come in till, say, August, and you're planning on a September rollout? Thank you.
Thanks. Bill or Chris, do we have a timetable for the building?
Yeah, Chris here. I talked to the engineer on Friday, and he said in 2 weeks they're hoping to have us a deliverable, which will give us the cost estimates.
Thank you. So we'll know more in 2 weeks. Thanks. Ken, I saw your hand, and Mike, I saw your hand, but you took it down?
Yeah, I did. But I go ahead, Ken.
No, go ahead.
I mean, I'm just wondering, maybe what we really want to do, none of us want to close any of the schools, right? And, so maybe part of the deeper dive is really trying to find ways to cut costs in all of our schools so that, they all have a vibrant, healthy future. That's all.
Jen?
Okay. Are we going to be going over these survey results at all anytime tonight? Isn't that set up for tonight's meeting?
We're not planning to go over the results. We're just going to show you the two mock draft surveys. And then we gave you the climate surveys based on Dana's request for seeing what kind of feedback we're getting, but we were not going to go over those results today. But that's up to the budget.
I remember there was one question was asked on a possibility. It was supposed to go out to everybody, whether it be a whole mailing list to every.
Those surveys haven't been done. We're looking at drafts of what would go out to everybody
Well,
tonight.
then we shouldn't take any option off the table till we get the results of these surveys back. Why would you take something off the table when the community hasn't even responded? If you take it off the table, you're saying, well, we don't care what you want. This is what we're going to do, and these are your choices. It's up to, there was one question in there about it actually had to do with, was it which, you know, if it came to it, would you rather, and I believe me, this is a very hard question. I'm not doing this just for any particular reason. I'm doing it because the question needs to be asked. And if you're going to ask the question, you got to give an answer. An answer's got to be brought back to the board. So if we're going to ask the community, and if they would rather have their local elementary schools or their local high school, which would they choose? As one of the questions, which it was, I'm paraphrasing. If that were the case, and it came back, 85% said Leland and Gray will stay open. You know, we prefer the local high school. Then there's your clear-cut answer. If it came back 85% say the elementaries, our local elementary schools are more precious to us, then that's a clear answer. If you're somewhere in the middle, then the board has to make the decision. But if you're sending out a survey to the people, you have to wait for an answer before you take anything off the table. Otherwise, you're not giving the community the choice, are you? It's in all fairness, that's all I'm saying.
Dana, your hand was up next.
I was going to throw it out there. I don't want people to take this the wrong way, but I would love to hear from 5 individuals from the community in a letter who have they're not an employee of the supervisory union. They're not related to a person who's employed from the supervisory union. I challenge the public out there to get five individuals to write a letter who have no association whatsoever, that they want to keep everything, all the Leland and Gray on the table, elementary schools on the table. I want to hear from 5 individuals. That's all I'm asking for. And then you got my full confidence in everything. It's a challenge. I'm throwing the challenge out there. Somebody write to us. Let us know. There are no connections to the supervisory union, not an employee, not related to an employee. Just somebody out there write to us, please.
Bob?
Well, yeah, I guess the one thing I just want to mention, I think it is important to get community input on this. But I do think that, Ken, the question that you're describing is inherently flawed, because it's asking to compare 2 things. And I don't know that it's really that simple. I don't know that it's either keep one or close the other. I guess that's my concern about that type of question. I don't think the input you're going to get is going to be particularly reliable unless you're talking about some other options as well. So it doesn't need to be this or that. It can be this and that. and or this. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just think that you have to be careful how you word and phrase the questions. You're going to get answers to questions you don't really want to know the answers to.
I was first off, Bob, I was paraphrasing. I can't remember the exact question, but
well, I think that is how Howie described it, Ken. I think when the full board meeting, it was something along those lines. I think you're right in paraphrasing it that way. I don't know what the actual draft says, but that is similar to how he described it initially.
We'll get to the draft in just a bit. Mike, you had your hand up.
Yeah,
Bill's
yeah.
out of hand.
Well, I kind of wanted to respond to what Ken said too. You know, like my intention with making this motion wasn't to put it onto, hey, now the elementary school staff should be scared. You know, that wasn't my intention at all. But I do see his point. We asked for community input. We should wait for that community input. But the reason I made the motion is, you know, what we've heard at the board level, I don't think there is a lot of support for closing LNG. And I also don't think there's a lot of support for building a new building right now. So that was where I was coming from this. And then, like I said a little bit later, you know, maybe what this committee should be doing is, you know, taking our deep dive and finding out how we can really most effectively run what we have and make the commitment to all of our schools that that's what we want to keep. You know, and let's find a way to make this not cost as much so that the taxpayers aren't crying mercy every time that we have a budget vote. I know it's a little bit of an idealist view, but maybe we can take the time in this committee to try to flush out some of those answers. That's all.
Thanks. Patty, then Al.
Hi again. Sorry, I don't mean to keep barging in, but I would hope to see some communication that's on the level of the Act 46 communication with the communities. I think we sent out with basic information on where people could find information and sent it out to all the voter lists. And I don't think it was a real expensive thing. And I think you'd be really surprised if the number of people have no idea this is going on. So just my 2 cents.
Thanks. Al, then Bill.
I would agree with Mike's sentiment. We're not trying to slight anybody here. I just really agree. I think we need to narrow down the decisions. The WCSU has enough on their plate. Looking at 11 different options seems ridiculous. And if the community results come back that, you know, we were wrong, great. But I don't feel that. In the community that I talk to folks and they want to keep Leland and Gray open. And I am sure that we'll see that in the results. But if we don't, again, we're just saying right now, Mike is saying right now, let's focus on what we think will be the future. And let's give some stability to the folks that are waiting to find out. Can we finally just say, Leland and Gray is going to be in existence. Don't worry about it. We've got your backs. I don't feel like these people think that we have their backs. And that is really, in my mind, poor leadership. And I think we really need to step up on this.
Thanks. Bill?
Yeah, I just wanted to just give a little historical conversational remembering for the board that when you guys discussed the surveys, you know, you were intentionally looking to have another avenue for feedback. So you have these meetings for feedback, you have your individual conversations for feedback, you have surveys, climate surveys that have nothing to do with this particular question for feedback. So you were looking to have another avenue for feedback. We're not looking to abdicate, I'm probably saying that wrong, your responsibility as elected officials to make these hard decisions. And I think Ken said it really nicely, that these are really challenging decisions that are going to eventually have to be made. And eventually you all are going to need to recommend a pathway to your community after getting feedback. And the survey is just one opportunity for feedback if you guys choose to do that. And there's going to be opportunities for other forms of feedback. But at the end of the day, you as the elected officials are going to be recommending something to move forward on based on all the feedback and the discussions and your thoughtful, challenging decisions. So I just wanted to remind you of those things that we've been discussing for the last couple of years.
Thanks, Bill. Dana, then Tammy Clausen.
Hi, this is for Chris Medina. Chris, is this thing you're waiting back from the engineers, is it on for a rebuild or renovation? Is it both or just the rebuild?
They are giving us costs on what it's going to take to rehab the facility to make it structurally sound again. And I believe they're also comparing that to the cost of rebuilding the building.
Thank you.
Tammy?
Hi, I'm trying to conserve the Wi-Fi in our home, so no audio, video from me. But I've been listening in on Al's computer, and I want to say that I hope that all of our students in this valley are precious students to us, regardless of if they are a 3-year-old, a 17-year-old, a 20-year-old. So I encourage the board to consider that when you're making these tough decisions. And just, you know, as a parent of an 11-year-old and a 17-year-old, I would hate for us to have to make a decision between which child is more precious, because we love all our children. So I just encourage you to keep an open mind and remember that all children are precious regardless of their age. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. I don't see any other hands. Oh, Ken?
Thought you were going to get away with that, huh, Joe? No. Anyway, no, I agree with Tammy 100%. Every child is precious. But my thing here is, I understand instability. Believe me, okay. I've seen where at the staff at the elementary schools are no different right now, okay, than the high school teachers as far as where certainty lies in the future. It's there at every grade level. It's at elementary, it's at the middle, and the high school, and I understand that. And I'm just saying, and I'm not going to go over again, that it's shifting it by saying this isn't going to happen, because when we consolidated, okay, it happened. Bill's office, I'm sure, was, and the principals at the elementary school level were getting all kinds of questions from their staffs about, well, am I going to be working here next year? What's going on? And so it's already happened at the elementary school level. And guess what? We survived. We still have great staff. It rots for anybody to ever think, am I not going to have job security this year? I get it. Okay. I've been there. This board, I would love to see for this board to turn around and say, well, let's see. If we could eliminate every one of our energy bills, okay, here we go. I'm going to go green here real quick. Think outside the box, people. Okay. We're going to put up a couple of windmills. We're going to put up some solar fields down in areas we're not using. Okay. We can put solar panels on a roof. Okay. Generate enough electricity where all the electric heating systems, all our computers, all our lights, all our machines are paid for by the district. How much would that cut out of the budget? What could we do with that money to put back into the students? It's the second largest bill we have is utilities, other than staff. So there's my challenge to this board. Think outside the box. It's not just numbers, okay? There's many opportunities for this district to make money to put back into our students. It's our job as board members to find them and make them happen. So that's my challenge to this board. I would love to see every one of these schools stay open. I would love to see them flourish more than they've ever flourished in the past. But it's up to us as a board to listen to the communities, and it's for us to come up with ideas outside the box instead of going with the norm. That's my challenge to this board. Make it happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Al?
I just wanted to say that the uncertainty at the elementary level is completely different than at the middle high school. At the elementary level, if consolidation were to happen or shifts or changes happen, we have, in most cases, retained a lot of those folks, move them from one school to another. We maintain control of that, right? So it's within the West River district. No matter how, if we have 3 elementary schools, we have 2 elementary schools, we have control over where staffing goes. If completely different situation with Leland and Gray, and why they are so worried and upset about it, and understandably, is that we're talking about shifting all of that out of this district, no longer within our control. That's 50% of our student population or more. And in terms of the staffing, Bill, you could probably tell me, but it's probably at least half. So yeah, when you have 50% of the people working for you, a little bit on edge because we're considering, or at least it's still on the table, the fact that we may move our kids to Brattleboro, to other schools, may farm them out. Yeah, I can completely understand why they are on edge. And back to Mike's point, we need to narrow these options and get some of these folks to have some peace of mind as they take a well-deserved rest over the summer.
Thanks, Al. Mike?
Well, I think the next thing is, if we don't narrow the options, is we would then have to take a deep dive into how we are going to evaluate all the options and, maybe pros and cons for each option, which is fine for this committee and our board to do. I was just trying to cut to the chase of where I feel the community is. But again, Ken's right. We haven't heard from the community. So, that said, I still think that the community does support LNG, and I still don't think that the community supports building a new building at this time. But yeah, I mean, that's are we going to take, are we going to do pros and cons lists for all 11 options, or are we going to try to narrow this down?
Thanks. I don't see any other hands. Are we actually, I mean, again, this is not a binding motion on the board. It's just an action.
Right, it's a committee motion.
A recommendation. Are we ready to, Al?
I was just gonna say, call the question.
Are we ready to vote? As long as nobody else has any comments, we don't have to vote on calling the question. All right, so if you're a board member and you're not on video, it's hard for me to find you for the roll call. So turn on your video if you're here, please. Ken?
The motion is?
To not put any more energy or resources into the options that close Leland and Gray, or build a new building at this point, to recommend to the board that we not pursue those pathways right now, so that we can pursue the other pathways on a deeper dive, essentially, Mike, right?
Yep, that's correct.
It's going to have to be a nay only for the fact that we haven't got the survey results back.
Okay. Dana?
I abstain.
Al?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Are there any other budget committee members on the call? Leanne, are you here or did she leave? I think she fell off. Okay. I think we ought to move forward with this motion as well. So that would make it, that would make the motion pass. And here comes Leanne. So we can make that recommendation to the board at the next board meeting. What the board does with it is up to the board.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Joe,
Yes.
since Leanne is a member of the budget committee and she's back now, she should probably have an opportunity to weigh in on that motion.
Are you back, Leanne?
I am. I have been in and out through most of the discussion. I'm really struggling tonight with my internet connection, so I missed most of that, so I'll just abstain for now.
Okay. So that doesn't change the outcome. The motion still passes as a recommendation. Thank you. So I think we are now at taking a look at the draft surveys, right? Is that where we are on the agenda? Okay, so we have the draft agenda. We have the draft surveys that have been put together for us. There are 3. Can you share, Al? Or do I need to?
Yeah, give me one
is the
sec.
Leland and Gray student survey, right?
So while Al gets that ready, I'll just tee these up. So we're going to look at the one that Stephanie drafted, which was LNG student survey that the board asked us to do. And then the second one is one that Jen drafted. Jen is not here. And that is one for consideration to go to the community. And I can speak to that one. And then the other one were a collection of climate surveys. We weren't planning on discussing those tonight. We simply wanted to put them in your hands as a feedback loop that we would normally do. But because Dana asked a very prescient question, we wanted to make sure we got that info to you.
Right, the climate surveys are surveys that have already been done, and it's just really data for us to take a look at. So this is the Leland and Gray student survey, correct, Stephanie? You want to talk about it?
Sure.
Thank you.
I had drafted the questions and shared with you guys, I think 2 or 3 meetings ago. And as I, created this and really put it on paper or electronically put it in the cloud, it felt like it was really way too long and too comprehensive and got into some touchy questions that I think skewed us from what you really are looking for, which is when you're looking at school at Leland and Gray, what are the components that matter to you, whether you're a parent or guardian of a current student, former student, homeschooling family in the past or currently, and whether you're an actual current student or a former student. So, so I feel that this survey gets to the point pretty quickly and allows the board, if you guys look down, so you figure out which role you're participating in. And I know some of you may have many roles, so that would be something we have to factor in. Maybe you would choose other in that case. Gets a little bit of question around if the person graduated from Leland and Gray or if they left before graduating. And then which grade cluster they or their child attended or currently is attending. And then if you reside in a choice town, did you choose Leland and Gray for middle or high school? And so that's getting at these people that we're wondering about, if they have a choice, what choice are they making? Are they choosing Leland and Gray or not? And I obviously want to make sure I included in there that somebody doesn't live in a choice town, just in case. And then the factors that influence the person in making a decision about the school. So we involved or included class size, program offering, quality of education, social opportunities, individualized attention, resources, parent-guardian involvement, behavior management, safety, quality of staff, extracurricular activities, so sports, theater, and those things that Bob was talking about, administration, mental health supports, facilities, special education instruction or programs, location, or other, and other, I should say. And thanks to Bob, he helped me figure out how to make it so people could select more than one option, because we want to know exactly what it is that helps people make those choices. And then I know the building was one of the questions people had on how that impacts people's decisions. So putting on there how well maintained are the facilities at Leland and Gray, I felt would get us that kind of information. And then it's kind of a satisfaction survey. How likely are you to recommend Leland and Gray to others? And then overall satisfaction of the person taking the poll or the child's experience at Leland and Gray. And then an open question on sharing information about experiences that people want to share. And, so if you had read the other draft that I had sent out initially, you'll see that this one is much shorter, but I think it gets to the heart of the matter of what you guys were looking for.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
I guess that's the draft of the survey. If there are things that we, we as the budget committee think that we're not getting information that we want on that, now would be the time to make the suggestions about that. Otherwise, I think we can take that to the board at the next meeting and say, here's the survey and this is what we think. This is what we think should go out, and we can start the survey process to gather this feedback. Dana, you have a thought?
I would like to say I think the survey was very well put. I like it. Send it out. My recommendation.
All right. Thank you. Anybody have anything? Any other comments or additions? I also agree. I think it's perfect. It gets at what we want to get. You did a great job shortening it up. I mean, it's not one page yet, but we can work on that.
Exactly. I was thinking that, but as I was typing the questions in initially, I was like, this is just way too long. I don't know if you guys are the same as me, but when you get these surveys that get so long, I just X out of them. Like, I'm done. It doesn't matter what I think, So,
I have lost my patience with those. Okay, so if there aren't any other comments or any additional feedback on that, then we're okay with presenting this to at the next future board meeting, saying this is what we think should go out to the Leland and Gray community. Ken?
Yeah, there's one question on the survey I think we should kind of take off due to the fact, and I don't like this word, and I didn't use this word, I believe. Our buildings manager used the word structurally sound. We need to make improvements to make it structurally sound. So if we're saying that we have a unstructurally sound building, is it well maintained? And that bothers me, that we have a building that needs repairs to make it structurally sound.
Maybe after we get the engineering report, in between this meeting and the July 13th meeting, we can revisit that question and that wording with a little bit more knowledge back from the engineer. Would that be okay?
Oh, that would be fine. And I really hope they come up with a better word.
Well, and I think it also goes to perception. Most of these questions are perception, and people may decide that people may answer that they think that the facilities are extremely well maintained. It's more about the perception than do you know
Reality.
there are problems? So, but yeah, we can tweak this when we get the report before we send it out.
But I think that might bring it down to one page. No.
Okay. So moving on to the next survey, that would be the community survey, which Jen put together and you can speak to, Bill, right?
Yes, yes, I can. So my first question is, do you guys want to have Stratton on there? They're a member of the SU. They are pre-K through 12 choice. I don't know how many students we actually have from Stratton that come to Leland and Gray.
Bill, would that be covered under other?
I think so. So, I mean, I think I would rather do the 4 main towns. Then the other question is do you want to have Wyndham on there?
Yeah.
This survey has a lot to do with the financial implications of things. So probably it should go to the towns that get affected financially, for sure. And then after that,
I think Wyndham should be on there.
I'm sorry?
If we swap Wyndham for Stratton, you good with that, guys?
Yep. Yes.
And then I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll answer any questions after you see it.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah, go ahead.
On that top one that we're looking at, do we want to, if we're asking people to rank them and then we give them check boxes, I'm not sure how that's going to work. So we might want to put.
Yeah, on that second page, you'll see actually probably how the layout would be with the exact same questions at the very bottom. I agree. You wouldn't have check boxes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We just put that exact same copy there. But yeah, I think ranking them is what you kind of were interested in as a board.
Right.
And then do you see the follow-up question at the top of that page? We kind of teased out after that ranking, it says and or at the bottom, and then at the very top, it has a possibility of a follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
That you could priority order those 3. I didn't know if that would be redundant because we've just asked them to do the order of the agreed upon values. So I was kind of curious of the budget committee's feelings on that.
I think it's wonderful to get that sort of, have them rank what they see as better options in there.
Okay. And again, you guys are getting the first crack at it, and we'll run through the board again on July 13th. And then Ken, I think that one question, the middle of the second page, that's the question that you guys have to decide if you want to ask. And I don't know if we worded it correctly, or if it's too leading, if it is not leading, and we struggled really hard trying to figure out how to ask a question in that manner.
It's not an easy question to ask. I know that.
But does it get to the point of asking the question? I guess. I know it's not easy to ask.
With the other piece of this, I can't remember if it's page 1 or, yeah, I think the first page. If we're including Wyndham, I'm just wondering if we need to word this differently, because I'm thinking like if for whoever's involved in the school piece, I'm wondering if they would think that we're changing their elementary. Do you know what I mean? Like it's specific to West River. I'm just concerned if you're specifically bringing Wyndham in, that then they're thinking, you know, so it's just tough.
Well, we could probably add some detail about particular to Wyndham.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll make that note. All right. And then I spoke with our town clerk at the district level, and I thought about the board's desire to get as much feedback as possible from the citizenry. And one thing I'd like the board to consider on July 13th is if you guys approve this particular survey, is to ask the town clerks to have it available at each voting location on August 11th. What would be required is we would have to give them all the copies. They would have to be color so that they could not be misconstrued with ballots. And we would have to provide our own box. And the town clerks wouldn't touch anything. They would just have a box that somebody could grab, they could complete, and then they could stick into a box. But it's kind of like the old Doyle survey. I think that you guys remember that survey that they used to have at town meeting that came from, right? Is it the Doyle survey?
Yes.
Yeah. So it would run similar to that. You know, people could pick it up if they wanted to. They didn't have to. We would publicize that it would be there. But in thinking for your timeline for decision, that would probably be the largest gathering of people in your communities. And then you guys would, you know, we could analyze the data and get it all back to you, you know, the 13th or 14th, so that you guys could continue your conversation. So those are the things we were thinking about.
I think that's perfect. Ken, then Dana, then Mike.
Yeah, all right. So Bill, you're talking about the question, is it, which one are you talking about? You have two of them up here.
I'm talking about this whole thing would go at that vote on August 11th in a different colored paper.
Right. Okay. But as far as these questions go to the options, and then you have the financial realities of the district one, which is, I believe that's the one we're, right? Is that, yeah.
That's Howie's question, essentially, right? And then below that is a repeat of what Mike pointed out. We would just use one of those. We would use the one where you'd have to rank those, not the checkbox one.
Right. I'm going to agree with that. Go with the ranking one. You know, I don't know if that's going to be more of a turnoff than a check. You know what I mean? For the voters to sit there at the. But either one works for me. I prefer the ranking myself, but that's up for the board to decide.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Dana, then Mike.
Yeah, Bill, for those of us who absentee ballot, is this going to be available before then?
It would be available at the town clerk's office, because if the board approves it on July 13th, we could crank them out and get it to them, you know, July 15th. but we couldn't mail them out unless the board directed me to mail them. But then it would be, how do you get them back?
I think it's good with the ballot box option, the Doyle plan, we'll call it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike?
Sure. I like the idea of having it at the polling place. It gives us a great cross-section of voters who, pass or fail our budget, so that's great. How do we publicize it enough in advance so that people know that it's there and that they can officially weigh in? Because that's going to be critically important.
So I think that we would discuss that on July 13th, and you guys would direct me to do whatever you wanted me to do. I mean, the basic stuff would be, ads that we could do in papers, as well as Front Porch Forum and Facebook and things of that nature.
Press releases.
Yeah, robocalls.
Yeah. The things I'm going to be doing at the end of this week for Monday night's meeting and Tuesday's vote.
Exactly.
Right.
Hey, Bill, Dana, is there a chance of a postcard?
Whatever the board wants to spend money on, man, it's up to you guys.
Money we don't have.
Yeah, I think the postcard mailing during the WRED deal was like $2,500, maybe $3,000 to mail a postcard.
We did some, as a board, we did some mailings last year. What did those cost?
I would have to look, but I think it was
Like
all said and done. I think somewhere about 3,000 to 5,000.
Yeah, I was $2,500 to $3,000 for a postcard mailing. Ken, you have a comment?
Yeah, as far as we were talking about doing this on town meeting day.
On August 11th, primary.
Primary day.
Oh, primary day. Okay. All right. No, okay. So yeah, that would be just like any other. Usually if it was like on town meeting day, they usually would say, okay, we have the Doyle poll over here. If you would like to take it, take it. But if we're doing a ballot, they can hand the sheet up with the ballot and just say, this goes in, So I just go for it. Do it.
Well, we won't do it until the board approves it, but
right.
I wanted you guys to be comfortable to be able to talk about it.
So I'll make a motion. We recommend the survey to the board. Or can we just do a straw poll instead of?
Well, we had been just as we've been going through these surveys, we had basically agreed that the Leland and Gray students, past students, high school students survey was something we would recommend. Once we got through this one, I again, as long as we all agree that this is what we want to make a recommendation, we can just come out of, I'm not sure it has to be formalized into motions as much as just the committee needs to agree that that's a recommendation we want to make. We can make a motion, or that we approve both, that we recommend that both surveys be sent out, one, as one ahead of the other, because they're going to go out by different methods and things like that. However you want to do it. Consensus or motion, whatever you want.
Go with consensus.
Yeah, everybody that's spoken on it has been, thinking that these surveys look good and that we should get them out. Bill, you have a question?
No, I was just going to say that I would, if whatever the board decides on July 13th on the original motion to shrink the number of pathways, we would alter this survey to match whatever the board decides on July 13th.
Well,
makes sense. Okay, so any more discussion with respect to the community survey? Seeing nothing, we like that. Now the climate surveys were really just provided as data for us. Is there anything in there that you wanted to highlight, Bill, or is that just really, here's some information for us that answers questions we may or may not have? Do we need to go through them, or?
No, we don't need to go through, and it's a really odd time because remember, this normally would have been happening in person, promoted, during that March-April period. And our world was very different during this March-April period. So we wanted to make sure we gave you that feedback, but the numbers are actually quite low on our normal numbers of feedback. But that is the kind of data that you will, as a board, will get every year. It'll be annual data. So what I would suggest is that at this time of the year, you know, May, June, we have a meeting to review the surveys and have an opportunity to discuss what we've learned from it. But we didn't want to replicate something where we knew we already had some data, and you guys had asked for some of that feedback, so we just wanted to get it to you for this time.
Okay, thanks. I know I've seen them before. I had looked through these. I didn't notice that the responses were low, but they are, huh? Dana, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw out to the committee that for being a new member, these surveys help me get like an idea of what's going on, you know, in the different schools. So I really appreciate it from being a new board member. I needed some baseline to start with. So thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry for the old members that I had to, you know, bring up old stuff, but I need somewhere to start. So thank you very much.
Now these are done every year, and typically, you know, the board that's responsible for the school does get to see them at some point. So, you know, there's probably historical data if we really wanted it. But Al?
I agree with Dana. Even for somebody who's been a board member for a long time, this is great information, and it really kind of gives you insight, I'm guessing, into what the administration looks to with these results and what they need to target on. What are we doing well? What are we not doing well? So in looking at a lot of these results, I saw a lot of basically affirmatives for keeping Leland and Gray. I saw some very strong support for that, but again, we'll see that later on, I'd imagine.
Thanks, Al. Anybody else? Okay. So we're down to tasks for the administration prior to the July 13th meeting. One of them was to run out FY22 models for the remaining scenarios. And since we did pass a motion to not devote time and energy to some scenarios, those would not be given FY22 numbers for the July 13th meeting.
That is my understanding. It doesn't mean that it can't change if the board has a different discussion on July 13th. It's just right. Between now and July 13th, I would ask that we direct our office, Lori, to not work on those, just work on the other scenarios so that you guys had.
Right. Was there anything else in the first part of the meeting that I've missed?
No, you guys were fantastic. I mean, basically, remember, after we do this meeting, the July 13th meeting is going to look very similar on the agenda. Bob will do the Leland and Gray future planning. We will go through the survey again and just confirm for the whole board. We will go through the community survey again and confirm for the whole board. I'll probably take the climate surveys off because everybody has them in hand. And then we'll get to the point of, you know, what direction the board wants to take on July 13th. But what we will do is we will add Lori's work on the FY22 modeling to the July 13th meeting. But not include scenarios in which a new building is built or Leland and Gray closed.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
That's it? That's all, Lori?
Well, so what are we looking for then, right? So
to get our cost below $1.
Yeah, that reminds me. Did we ever talk about doing the costing out the absolute lowest possible tax rate that could exist, where if we closed absolutely everything and totally tuitioned the kids and just took that base number and did the math and didn't add in extras like transportation and everything else, that your absolute baseline here, folks, is X. And so to talk about reducing taxes below this is absolutely, just can't happen. I know we had talked about that offline at something about doing it. I don't know if it ever got elevated to could that be done?
Yeah, that has not been elevated to this group. I think that was Joe, that was you and Mike and I talking on election night about
That's right.
trying to help the community understand what the full continuum was. And that was something that had not been modeled out. So no, that direction has not been given to Lori to model that out. But if this committee would like us to model that out, having taken off some other modeling, I think we could probably do that by the 13th.
Yeah. Didn't Emily Long discuss that with us? Didn't we have one of our meetings where we did talk about that we can't control the number of people who move in just to have school choice, or was that specific to 7 through 12?
It was specific to 7 through 12.
Okay.
That she was talking about. This has not been discussed in a committee meeting.
I think it's worthy to present to our public and to the board. Like Joe said on election night, that's the absolute floor, and that's no bells and whistles, and we're totally at the mercy of whatever boards are running those schools. If we were doing that, I don't think anybody really supports doing that. But it certainly is a good number to know, so that if people are saying, if that turned out to be $1.75 on the tax rate, that that would open up a lot of people's eyes, I think.
Yeah, I have no idea what it would be. I just want to know
I don't know
what you want us to do.
No, right. It's certainly a good academic exercise to know if it's not too much for Lori.
No, it's fine. It's basically building a budget like Stratton's budget. They do provide a little bit of transportation, but I can take out transportation if that's the case.
I think it would help give a different perspective to people when comparing, okay, this is the lowest it could be towards whatever our proposed budgets put the tax rate at in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would, yeah, that was my point when we were talking about it on election night, that it would be illuminating to find out that, this is as low as it can go.
It was a good idea.
To see it. I'm for it too, just to see what it looks like.
All right, so it sounds like the whole committee except Al hasn't said anything and Ken hasn't said anything. But, if it's not too much, Lori, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So my plan right now is I can put that in there as well. Again, it'll be looking like a Stratton budget, which is familiar to me. And then the other, what I've started building is just going out from fiscal year 22 to 25 and seeing what that looks like if nothing changed, right? So if you made 0 changes and you're at $2.204 for fiscal year 21, what does that look like by 25 with just your basic increases every year? So you can kind of see that growth that's going to happen, knowing that, as we've looked at before, that the equalized pupils have leveled out. So I won't make any changes to those up or down, because the chart shows us that we're at a level. We should be at a leveling. We don't know what'll happen with COVID, but so that was my plan. And then with taking the other options off the table for right now, that's what I would plan to bring. So if there's anything else, be great to know it tonight.
That makes sense to me. I do see Al's hand up, and he's probably going to pile on work.
No. So you would just make the same basic assumptions for running out healthcare, everything, the current rates of growth across the board.
Exactly. Just so you can see, at what rate does the tax rate grow if you did nothing, if you kept everything the same as fiscal year 21. So
Okay.
you can sort of understand if you don't make any changes, where are you headed?
And the same assumption that we would be above the threshold in every one of those years.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Anything else we need to task with? I didn't think so. Bill's no. All right, then that's it. We can all go home.
You need a motion to adjourn?
We do.
I'll give you a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor? Dana?
Aye.
Al?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Leanne?
Aye.
That's it, right? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.